I was born into a war zone country. It was definitely a scenario where it definitely builds resilience for you, because you're basically going from a day-to-day basis trying to figure out if you're going to survive the next day or not. And imagine as a kid living in any other country or most countries, you're kind of worried about like, what's my lunch today, or what am I doing after school? For us, it was, are we going to wake up the next day?
Welcome to the Who You Know Show, where what you know is important, but who you know can make all the difference in your wealth, health, business, career, your relationships, and your life. I'm your host, Trevor Houston, and on today's episode, we got a guest that is the definition of resilience and transformation. Growing up in a war-torn Beirut, I think that's how you say it. Beirut. I told you I was going to do that.
I'll forgive you.
Growing up in war-torn Beirut to becoming a leading cosmetic dentist, entrepreneur, and podcast host, she's proof that mindset and discipline can change everything. So today we've got Dr. Guitta Harb. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Trevor. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so before we got started, you're like, what kind of questions are you going to ask me? What is going on in here? No, really, we just wanted to kind of dig into your story here.
Sure.
Because, growing up in a war zone, talk to me about that. Take us back a little bit, and how did that shape you to who you became today?
Oh, my gosh. So I was actually born into it. I was born into a war zone country. And I grew up in it in about 14 years. So from basically being a baby all the way until I was a teenager, my early teenage years. And it was definitely tough. It was definitely a scenario where it definitely builds resilience for you, because you're basically going from a day-to-day basis trying to figure out if you're going to survive the next day or not. And imagine as a kid living in any other country or most countries, you're kind of worried about like, what's my lunch today, or what am I doing after school? For us, it was, are we going to wake up the next day? Am I going to have my limbs? Am I going to have my arms or my legs? Are my parents going to be alive? And so I grew up in so many wars. I think I've probably survived 4 wars from childhood, from being a baby until 14, because there was invasions, and 2-3 years later another country invaded, and 2-3 years later it was this group against that group, and so it was constant throughout my childhood. And it wasn't something that I endured for a short period of time. It wasn't like a short trauma. It was a lifelong childhood trauma.
So do you say it became like just life?
It was life. I mean, yeah. I think growing up in Beirut at the time, and mind you, Beirut was the Paris of the Middle East. It was where everybody went to party and have a good time. And when the war started, and when I was born, this is when things just went downhill, and it became kind of, what you see on TV. Kind of people now look at Beirut and they say, oh, it's just a war zone,
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it just was a way of life. I mean, that's what I knew. And I thought that's just how everybody lived. You just go to bed, and all of a sudden at 2:00 in the morning, there's just like all these bombs in the sky falling on your balcony, and you have to run to the shelter. And so, we lived in these penthouses, because we lived in the city, and every penthouse had shelter, like bomb shelters underneath. And I was like the key holder to the bomb shelter, because I used to get so scared and had so much anxiety as a child, from obviously because I was so little when this whole thing happened. And so I would literally sleep with my, with shoes on. I would sleep with the keys to the shelter in my hand. And I would sleep on my back, because I was so afraid to sleep on either side of, and close my ears, because I wanted to hear where the bomb is coming from, and if a bomb was coming, which direction. And I remember being 5 years old. And at that time, I knew who was bombing us, what direction was it coming from, and how many seconds did I have to run to the shelter.
Holy crap.
You knew from the whistle of the bomb which direction it was coming from, this way or east or west or north or south. So imagine, a 5-year-old having to deal with something like that, when here you're just like playing with Play-Dohs and having play dates and, going whatever, doing classes and swimming and ice skating. Over there, it was more like, which way do I run?
That's
You know?
Yeah, I thought I had a
horrible one.
rough growing up, man.
Well,
But
I've
dang.
got a 6-year-old right now. I mean, I've got
Yeah.
10, 8, and 6, and I can't even imagine that kind of life for them. Like, so what did your parents do? I mean, how do you even, in a war-torn country like that, what do you even do for a living? And all
You
that?
know, my dad just passed away last year, unfortunately, and he was a politician.
Okay.
And he kind of sort of like, sometimes he would shut down the country and they'd be like, Guitta, is like, are the schools open tomorrow? He was represented Lebanon in international Congress meetings and things like that. And so he was a politician and he knew a lot what was going on. Growing up in that environment, you know, I tell my friends, I'm like, it was like, have you seen The Godfather? Where, you know, they're coming over their house and it's like cigars and guns. And that's kind of how I grew up in that environment, very political environment and very much, you know, things going on. I didn't know too much at the time because I was little. I was the youngest of 8. So kind of, I didn't know much growing up because I was at the time super young and my older brothers and sisters knew a lot more of what was going on. But I mean, it shapes you in so many ways that you know, you're constantly in a fight or flight mode and you're constantly anxious and you're constantly on your tippy toes. So like we would go to school and all of a sudden we're sitting in school and there's like boo, boo, boo. And there's like bombs everywhere, whistles everywhere. And the school will start to call my parents and like, come pick up your kids. And we were 4 girls. We went to an all-girl Catholic French school growing up. And my mom would just have to, or my dad would have to run to school and pick all of us up and bring us home. And there'll be bombs all over the place. And you're just like, I just want to make it home. I just want to make it home. So it wasn't that, you know, even sometimes on a normal day where you are at school and you think everything is fine, all of a sudden, like, hell breaks loose and you're just like, am I just going to make it home? So it's a very tough childhood. And as you're saying, you know, you have a 6-year-old, I have a 14 and a 15. And I can't imagine if the Wi-Fi goes down, they're like, ah! They panic.
Yeah.
And so they have no clue what is going on. They have no idea what is going
iPad
on.
battery dies. It's
So
like,
let me ask you
Yes.
this. Let me ask you this because, you know, your experiences often shape you into who you are, right? So going up through all of that, what were some lessons or takeaways that
my
you
gosh.
feel like how do you use that to become
Yes.
who you are today?
The number one lesson, and I think everybody says to me, why are you the way you are? I wake up at 4:30 a.m. every morning. And
Me too.
Yay, boom.
4:30
I was
in the
a
house.
5 o'clock, you know,
I was
club.
too.
Now I'm at the 4 a.m. club.
I'm the
5:30 club.
I
Don't
went
you
down-
love it?
It's kind of actually
life-changing.
That little 30 minutes
it's
from
the best.
from 5 to 4:30.
Yeah. It's like an extra little,
That extra 30 minutes.
It's a buzz. It's like, it's amazing, right?
People
to try it.
people think we're crazy. I know
People
that.
do think we're crazy. It's funny because I post on my stories. I'm like, it's 3:30. Good morning. People are like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Go back to bed.
Rise and grind. Let's go.
I'm like, rise and grind. It's a beautiful day. But going back to your question of how did that shape me, I think a lot of people go, why are you always so positive? Why are you always so happy? Why are you always so gung-ho? Why are you always going, going, going? And I think growing up in that environment, number one, shaped me to really appreciate life. Because I feel when everything is going so good in your life, like for my children, they don't appreciate things the way I appreciate things. So when I wake up at 4:30 and I'm like waiting for that sunrise to wake up, I'm like, oh my God, it's like I'm enjoying my coffee. I'm enjoying
No
the sunrise.
bombs.
No bombs. And you know, back then, back home at the time, the government would shut off the electricity. So imagine you have bombs falling on you, you have no electricity. I would have to either light a candle or hold like a lantern and run into the shelter. And on top of that, we had to study on candle lights and get up the next day. And if there was no bombs, we would go to school and take our exams. And you're in a dungeon on cement floors on a mattress doing homework. And so it makes you appreciate life. That's number one. Number two, it makes you adapt. I mean, coming here and moving at such a young age at 14, and I spoke fluent Arabic and French, and I knew barely any English. So having to all of a sudden in one night leave your country, leave your friends, leave your school, leave your cousins, your family, everybody, the country that you grew up in, come to a different country, and all of a sudden you're like, at 14, go to college. I skipped high school, 4 years of high school, went to college. I barely spoke English. And have to make new friends, learn a new language, learn a new culture. And then my parents went back because my dad was a politician. And so he had to go back and like he had businesses. He goes, I can't stay here. So imagine that. So it makes you adapt. And I think it made me really not just learn how to just, evolve or just be, but it made me also learn how to thrive.
Well, we see this a lot. Actually, I went to Tony Robbins' conference, and he was talking about, he was saying that good times create weak people. Weak people create hard times.
Yes.
And hard times create strong people. Strong people create great times, and it just goes in a cycle. It just goes around and around. So it sounds like you went through the hard times, and it created strong
100%.
person.
I think it makes you who you are. And I think a lot of times now I look at my kids and how they panic when something tiny happens. Like I said,
so are you creating some weak kids?
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. I'm like, I look at them. Let me give you an example. During COVID, when COVID hit, I mean, we live in Orange County. It's like, you're in a bubble and like the perfect place. The sun is shining. And we were in the house for about when the whole shutdown happened. I'm a dentist. I couldn't work on my patients, so I had to close my office. And I didn't know what to do with myself because I'm always running around and I'm working and I'm doing this. And so I became this like chef, like a really huge chef. And I started cooking these big meals at home. And every morning I would have like breakfast ready for the kids, lunch and dinner. And they were just the whole time complaining. Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. When is this going to end? And at that time, they were 11 and I believe 9. And I hadn't told them my story because I didn't want them to like feel anxious or have anxiety or anything like that. And I said, one of these days, I'm going to tell, when they're older, I'll tell them what mommy went through. I told them very little about the war. And I said, I grew up in a war and I moved here when I was 14 and that's all they knew. And I remember like working my butt off at the stove and I'm making this like gourmet lunch and I put it in front of them. I'm like, here's your lunch. What do you want for dinner? And they both looked at me and they were like, this is awful. And mind you, we bought them electric scooters, electric bikes. They were outside playing like all sorts of board games. They had everything. Okay. They just couldn't like sometimes hang out with their friends. And I turned around and I had lost it. I literally lost it on my kids. And I turned around and I just went up to the other counter and I go, sit down, both of you. And they were like, what's going on? I'm like, I need to tell you a story. And I sat them down and I said, and I told them what happened. I said, you guys have electricity. You have food. You have a house over your head. You live in Orange County, which is a bubble. You have everything that you need. You're fully safe. And you have a mom that's sitting here and like making you these gourmet meals and buying you stuff and taking you everywhere. What are you guys complaining about? What is there to complain about? And I was like, do you understand what I went through as a child from the day I was born until I was 14 years old? And they were like both looking at me like, what is up with this lady?
Did it still not register?
Oh, I did. And I sat him down that day and I was waiting a couple more years. I was like, I'm going to wait a little bit more until they get older to tell them the story. But at that point, I had lost it because it was 2 weeks at home and they were just nothing but complaining. And I just said to them, and I said, this is what I went through. I said, imagine right now you're underground in the dark on a candlelight studying and you have to get up the next day and go to school and take a test. And there's no you push the electrical switch and there's no electricity. And you have no hot water because there's no electricity. So you have to boil water to take a shower. And I said, imagine that. Imagine going through that. And so I told them the whole story. And at that point, they were just both like, their jaw was just open. And they were looking at me like, oh my God, Mom, like we had no idea. And I said, thank God for everything you had. First of all, thank God that you are actually like alive, that you wake up in the morning and your lungs are working and your heart is working and your arms and you have your arms and limbs. Because I said, at your age, I would go to bed and just pray and pray and pray and pray for my limbs to be intact the next day. Like that's what I prayed for as a child. I'm like, don't send a bomb on me and I would lose my limbs because I've had friends that it happened to. And so that was my biggest fear growing up. And I said, I don't want to be sitting in in a handicap with like no limbs and no arms. And because of things you see on TV all the time during the war and things that happen to your friends and family. And, and at that point, I think they kind of got it, and they were like, wow, we had no idea what you had gone through.
I hear this, and I'm like, I think back to like, and even I've done this with my kids, right? But my parents saying, hey, there's, eat your food. There's starving kids out there. And
Exactly.
like, and we're saying this, like, you could be so much worse, but you've lived that.
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean,
so-
I've lived some... if I had more time, I'd tell you some crazy stories. I mean, we'd be playing at tennis courts. We leave, and 2 minutes later, there's a bomb in the tennis courts exploding.
Oh,
We
my
had to
gosh.
run home. I mean, it's stories and stories on stories where you're like, you just cannot imagine the amount of anxiety
So-
that
Well,
you
I
would
think
have
hold
as
on,
a child.
I think about parents always talking about I want to give my kids the life that I never had,
Yes.
right? Mm-hmm. But that's not necessarily good.
I'm guilty of that, though.
Right, I know.
You're
It
gonna say
sounds
that.
like it.
Yeah.
It sounds like that. But also, what about the experiences? Because those, like, I mean, obviously you don't want to put them in a war zone.
Right.
But
Yes.
what I mean by that is like, some of those hard experiences that we grew up with, shaped us into who we are today.
Absolutely.
Right. And so it's almost like, I don't know, we shelter the kids and we put them in this bubble, and then they turn out to be little monsters. I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
saying your kids
Yeah.
are monsters, but
No,
you know what I'm
yeah.
talking about.
Or they're not
trust
able
fund
to.
babies. You know
they're
what I'm talking
not able
about?
to ever,
Yes.
to overcome, adapt, and
Yes.
overcome. They're, we helicopter
weak.
mom or dad them.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're weak. Yeah.
Yes.
And they're not able to think independently because everything's done for them.
Their mindset is
100%.
weak.
Yeah.
100%.
See, I had some growing up as a child. I had some moments where I didn't have electricity and water. I remember stealing water from the neighbors to flush the toilet.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember candlelight. I slept in a bookshelf. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh no.
yeah, I remember some stuff, but I didn't have no bombs going
Yeah.
off around me.
Yeah.
So like, but those things shaped me into who I am today.
100%.
You
And
know
I'm
what I
sure
mean?
you're more appreciative of what you have now.
Oh, yeah.
And your experiences now and your lifestyle now, more than anything.
Right.
And I'm like you said, I'm guilty of doing what you're saying to my kids, because I grew up with so much anxiety at the time that now as an adult I deal with all the time, right? And I feel that, when I was raising my kids, ever since they were babies, I wanted to create this environment of no anxiety and no fear, and everything is perfect and the perfect life. And I think because I went through so much of it, I wanted them to just not worry about anything at all. And so they were like, I want this. I'm like, here it is. Can we go here? Yeah, of course we can. And so like I take them on the best vacations, and they stay in like 5-star resorts all the time, and they go to private schools, and whatever they want, it's like given to them on a silver platter. And it wasn't until a couple years ago, I think I asked my daughter, I'm like, can you put this in the microwave? And she goes, where's the microwave? And I was like, are you kidding?
What?
I'm like, what? I mean, not mind you, I don't microwave stuff, but still, and at that point, I was like, I think I should probably, let the kids be a little bit, do
Yeah.
things on their own.
Spread
It's
their
okay.
wings a little.
Spread their wings a little. And so I started a couple years ago to be like, well, you're now 13. It's time, maybe you can put your own bagel in the toaster.
Oh man.
So
But
14, right, is when you came over here?
14.
14. So, I mean, that's still a pretty young, impressionable age. Lots of trauma and, that kind of baggage. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, how was that journey from that side of the world to this side of the world in this whole new environment, and then, like, the counseling or PTSD and
Oh,
things
yeah,
that you
major.
dealt with? Like, how did you... Can you
So,
describe that?
I mean, we're Lebanese. There's no such thing as I'm going to take you to a therapist. You just like deal with it, right? Middle Easterns, it's
Sure.
like, what's wrong? You just deal with it. You just go with the flow. And so I think,
Therapist.
yeah, there's no such thing. Like, how do you deal with PTSD? I think also I had older brothers and sisters, and I think that, maybe they were a little bit older, so they didn't feel it as much. They didn't go through the whole like mental trauma as much as I did. But honestly, I didn't. I thought I was okay all along because I grew up just adapting, and I kept adapting. So whatever happened to me, I'm like, oh, I can handle it. I can handle it. I can handle it. And it wasn't until I think I was probably in my early 20s that one day I was sitting in the office and I completely had like a panic attack. And at that point, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like, oh my gosh, I thought I'm unhealthy, or I have a heart disease, or what's going on with me. But I've been like a workout fanatic forever, and I've been a runner, and I was like, what's happening? And at that time, I was like, literally, the ambulance came and took me to the hospital. And for, days, they couldn't figure out what's going on with me. And I was like, I think I have a brain tumor. I think I'm dying of this. And I'm a total hypochondriac, right? Especially like going to dental school, like that first year when you're studying stuff. And they're like, this is a symptom of that. And I'm like, I got it. That's me. I have this disease. And so when that happened to me, I was like, oh my God, it's my heart. No, I have brain cancer. No, I have brain tumor. And literally weeks of testing, they couldn't figure out what it was because I was getting dizzy. I was getting like these heart palpitations. And someone after 2 weeks said, you know what, you just went through like a panic attack. And I was like, what? And I was like, what's that? And that's what took me back to, I remember, then that's when I started really digging. And I realized that all these years of trauma that I never dealt with because I just pushed it down. And every time something happened to me, I'm like, I'm fine, I'm tough. And I'm an Aquarius, so it's like, I just deal with things. I just move on, and I'm tough, and I don't show my emotions.
It is what it is.
And
right?
I'm strong, and it is what it is. And so I never dealt with it the proper way. I never processed it. My brain never processed all this 14 years of trauma. And again, there's a difference between a PTSD when something short happens to you, like within an hour or let's say a week. But we're talking an entire childhood, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a term for it. I think it's called, I forgot what it's called, but there's a term for it where it's like, there's a difference between that PTSD and this PTSD where it's like long-term PTSD. And at that point, I realized, and I was like, this is where all this is coming from. Because at that time, I was super young. I had graduated dental school at like 21. I was making like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was given a contract. I was running this huge center in Boston, and my life was great. I had a beautiful car. I had a penthouse, and I had everything I wanted. I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why is this happening to me? And I think it wasn't until I started like really like meditating and going through things and like really thinking about what is causing this. I remember going back to when I was 5, and at that point I was like, these were panic attacks back when I was 5 and 7. I remember like being in the shelter and telling my mom, like, I can't breathe. And mom was like, you're breathing. And I'm like, I can't breathe. And I felt like an elephant was on my chest because, bombs would be coming down, and you're in the dark, and you're like hoping that you're going to survive the next day, or you're going to even get out of the shelter for a few days. And so at that time, when I was like 21, 22, and I had that panic attack, it took me back, like when I really started to think deep of like, what is going on? It took me back to that little girl that was in that shelter at 5 and like screaming, I can't breathe. And at that point, I realized, I'm like, this stems from everything that had gone through. Yeah. And so it's really stuff that when I say I didn't want my kids growing up with anxiety, it's because of all the anxiety that I had. And it kept going on. And in my 30s sometimes, and when I got married, and I'm writing a book now, and this is, kind of all in the book, but I remember going to Disneyland and taking my kids when they were 3 and 4 to Disneyland. And I remember going to Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And you know how it's like, I don't know if you guys have been there, but
the
it's
cannons
like, there's cannons, and there's bombs, and it's dark, and they're bombing, and I was sitting there, and then all of a sudden I started to feel like I'm having this panic attack again. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm with my kids, my husband, I'm here to have fun. It's Disneyland. And I started hating Disneyland. And so my husband's like,
we were just talking about how messed up Disneyland is.
Disneyland's weird.
No. They're putting a strip club in Disneyland now.
No, they're not.
Yes.
Oh Lord.
Yes, they are.
Oh Lord. Well,
yes, they are. They're going. They're
many
going
weird
in.
things happening in Disneyland.
Disney's woke.
I stopped taking my kids years ago. I was like, I'm done with this.
So I had a quick question for you. So, because you were talking about the panic attacks and stuff like that, and the way you were describing it, have you ever had sleep paralysis? Where you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like paralyzed, like your eyes are open and you're like paralyzed, and it feels like there's a weight or a presence. Like I had this happen, and it felt like there was a demon in my room staring. Like it felt like there was a dark. If you look it up, a lot of people say that you're paralyzed, and it creates a fear. You're like, oh my God.
I've had dreams, and I'm sure everyone probably had them. Maybe I don't know if that's the same thing, but I've had dreams where if I watch a war movie, if I watch anything before bedtime that is stressful, and my husband has this thing where he likes to like watch UFOs and Bigfoot and all sorts of things. And when we got married, I was like, you do not put like anything stressful on at night. And he didn't understand what I had gone through. I hadn't told him. He knew like I was, grew up in a war. And he's like, why? I'm like, because I have nightmares, honey. Like, I really get nightmares. And it's always the weirdest nightmares like you're talking about. Like someone's attacking me and I'm frozen and I'm screaming and my voice is not coming out and you're like this. And you do open your eyes and you feel like someone's over you, but you can't move and your voice doesn't come out.
Yeah, that's sleep paralysis.
Yes,
yeah, it's a
yeah.
real thing.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know there was a name for it.
Yeah,
But there
oh
you go.
my
You learn
gosh.
something new every day.
It is so terrifying.
It's terrifying.
And I mean, you're frozen.
Yeah.
You can't speak.
No, you can't speak.
You want to scream for help, but you can't.
You can't.
Your eyes are open.
Uh-huh.
And it feels like something's holding you. Like there's this
Yeah.
dark presence, like a demonic, evil presence just holding you.
It's scary. It's a scary experience.
It's so scary.
And I'll tell you, when before we got married, I told my husband, I said, I can't watch, war movies. And he's like, oh, just let's see Saving Private Ryan. Have you guys seen that
Oh my
movie?
goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen the beginning of the movie?
Yeah.
Where it's the
Oh, it's
opening
just
scene
chaos.
is just like
Yeah.
war
They're-
and chaos and people
they're running
dying.
on the beach,
They're
right?
running on the beach.
Yep.
And he's like, it's not that bad. Just watch it. And I was like, all right, fine. Like, if you want to, okay. Literally that night, I was like screaming like there was no tomorrow. I was having nightmares. And he woke up and he's like, dude, we're never watching anything like that. And still to this day, I'm like, you want to watch UFOs and Bigfoot? Go watch it in another room. Like, do not include me. I need like meditation. I need like something happy. I need to wake up. I need to go to sleep with like happy thoughts, because he wouldn't understand. And I think now that we've been married for so long, and he realizes as soon as I watch something like depressing at night or something scary like that, like where it's loud and bombs or war or anything like that, like, kid you not, it's
I
always
have to
a nightmare.
protect my morning. I have
Oh,
to
100%.
my morning, like
Yeah.
like the energy that I receive in the morning. It's so crucial. Like if I get, that's why like going to your phone right away can be not so good.
Yeah.
Like don't go to your phone right away. But like the energy that you put in when
yeah.
you're fresh, it sets up your day for either you're going to be positive or maybe negative or whatever.
100%. And this is part of like my whole transformation, and part of the reason why I'm writing this book is because I went through that in the last 4 years. It's been such a big transformation, because I realized all these years that, even though I was successful and I had a successful practice and the husband and the house and all of that, there was something missing. And I think I was going through life just like running around like a hamster wheel, where you're just like, oh, I have to be this like perfect wife, and I have to be the perfect dentist, and I have to be the perfect mom, and I have to be the perfect friend, and constantly like all these pressures on me. And I broke down again. I mean, the same thing happened to me. I ended up in a cardiology office again, like with heart palpitations. And he's like, dude, do you take a lunch hour? And I was like, what is that? Like, what's a lunch hour? And he's like, do you meditate? And I was like, what's that? And
Sir, I am a doctor.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have time for lunch.
And I thought everything was perfect. And when you get up, in the morning and you rush. And that's what I was doing. I was getting up and I was getting my kids ready and dropping off at home and going to work. And my lunch was from 1 to 2. So I would go to school and I would volunteer at lunch for the kids. And I would run back to school to the office and see my patients from 3 to 5 and 3 to 6, run home, make dinner, put the kids to sleep, bathe them. And I wanted to be the hands-on doctor and the hands-on mom and the hands-on wife. And so I wanted to be like 110%. And I would come home and I had a nanny. I was like, don't bathe them. Don't give them food. I'll do it. And so I wanted to be there for them as well. I was doing so much that I collapsed. And the doctor's like, do you take time for yourself? Like, do you do anything for yourself? And at that point, he goes, you keep going the way you are. Your husband's not going to have a wife. Your kids are not going to have a mom. And your patients are not going to have a doctor. And so that's when I really, like, for the first time in my life, I sat down and I go, something has to change. And that's when the morning routine came
That's
about.
when 4:30 came about.
That's when 4:30 came about. And honestly, what I started doing...
You gave yourself space.
I did. I needed that space.
Hell yeah.
And I kid you not.
I need that space for sure.
No matter what's going on right now in my life, whether I have to catch a flight or we're going on vacation or I'm off or on Sundays, I make sure I plan that time in the morning for myself. I mean, it centers you. It makes you like...
If you get up at 4:30 a.m., okay, let me tell you something. You are never late, okay?
Yes.
You're just never late. You're always going to
not.
be on time. No matter what happens, you got it. Like, you're not rushed.
No.
Like, I give myself literally an hour. Okay, this is you want to know my peace.
Yeah, I wanna know.
Is an hour of coffee, okay? I need me.
I do the same thing.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, I don't
yes.
need anything but
Yes.
me and coffee for an hour.
That's what I do. I do. I don't want to talk to anyone. Oh,
Yeah.
obviously, there's no one awake at that time.
Exactly.
Right.
But I literally start, and this is what I do. I make my coffee at 4:30 a.m. and I just sit there.
Yes.
And sometimes my husband like now gets up at like 5:30. I'm like, shh.
Don't talk. Don't talk.
And he starts going, Did you sign that contract? Did you do this? I'm like, shh. Don't talk to me. Like,
Yeah.
And it's the best time because I'm just sitting there with my own thoughts and it's my hour. And I don't know what your schedule like during the day, but for me, from 6:15 on, it's mommy, Dr. Harb, honey, mommy, doctor. It's all day long.
Yep.
It's nonstop. I'm being pulled in different directions. And so, you know, the second I get into work at 7:30 or 8, it's like Dr. Harb this, Dr. Harb that, the patients, the assistants, the employees, the manager, the treatment coordinator. And then in between, of course, my kids are texting me, did you order this from Amazon? Are you picking me up? It's like constant.
Yeah.
And then I get home and it's like you have to be a wife and a mom and it's like nonstop. So that hour from 4:30 to 5:30
It's
with your
huge.
coffee is like, it's literally therapy. I call it therapy.
It's so good. Listen, for the audience tuning
Yes.
in right now, okay? If you are on that hamster wheel and every day is like, because I see people all the time.
All the
they're late, they're rushed, they're like, panicking, they're trying to get the kids here, get the kids there, and it's like, you know, you should just try getting up 30 minutes
Yeah.
earlier.
I hear my wife. I hear my wife
Oh.
talking to me, and that's her life.
Well,
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
for the
Oh,
parents
yeah.
out there too, that
Yep.
you know, your kids, you're always rushing to get your kids to school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, how about get the kids up earlier,
Right.
Because you're like, oh, but they take their time and blah blah blah. Yeah, maybe they need more time. Get them up 30 minutes
That's what
earlier.
I started doing with my kids, is waking them up 20 minutes earlier because it was always craziness and
Yep.
rushing and screaming and
Yep.
yelling. I was like, you know what? From now on, you guys are going to get up 20 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
If you want to take that time to just sit in bed for 5 minutes and like stretch a little bit, great, and go
Yep.
make yourself breakfast. And that's just how it is. And our mornings are way better now. It's like, and I get to work and I'm calm.
Yeah.
I'm calm.
None of this like yelling at the kids. Hey, you need to get ready.
Yeah.
Yo, get your shoes on. We
gotta
gotta
go.
go.
Oh,
We gotta
let's
get
go. We're gonna be late.
It's like no. That is like that's bad parenting.
Yeah.
Get the kids up earlier so you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. No, I mean,
Looking
there
at you.
are so many things. No, because listen, I have friends and I ask my girlfriends, I'm like, what time do you get up? And they're like, 7?
Yeah,
Seven's too
seven.
late.
That's
That's
Seven's
almost
just too
3
late.
hours later than I wake up. I'm like, 7? So how do you get up and like just jump in the shower? Like I can't
Yeah.
even
People do that.
comprehend that now that I've been doing the 4:30 a.m. for 4 years.
Yep.
Actually 5 now, since 2020. I cannot comprehend waking
Just
up at
waking
7
up and
having
going.
to be anywhere at 8.
Well, I think a lot of so
It would be
Anywhere.
chaos.
a lot
It's
of
chaos.
people.
Yeah.
It would stress me out.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
A lot of people, they don't get up that early because they're at night, they're in bed.
But you know what?
Well,
you know
you
why?
know what I mean?
Okay, I used to be that person.
Yep.
So, and I'll tell you, and again, this is exactly what I read about. I used to come home and I used to, again, be with the kids, bathe the kids, shower the kids, put them to sleep. By the time I scratched this one and I scratched that one and I read to that one and I read to that one, it was like, let's say 8:30. And I would go and take my shower and get in bed by 9. And I was like, you know what? I deserve an hour or two of dumbness because my
Downtime,
brain
yeah.
is going all day as a doctor too. Like you're reading x-rays, you're dealing with patients, you're solving problems, you're this and that. And I was like, I deserve like 2 hours of like just being dumb. Like dumbing myself down. I literally would watch like the Housewives of Orange County. Then I would watch the Housewives of Utah. Then it was the Housewives of New York. And then sure enough, it was like
Dallas.
midnight. Oh, Dallas. Sure enough, it was like 12:30 sometimes. Of course, if you go to bed at 12:30, 1 a.m., you're not going to get up at 4:30. There is no way. And if you did, you're dead the next day, right?
Yeah.
And so part of my journey and part of my transformation was I had to shed and get rid of so many other things in order to be that person.
Yeah.
There's no way you could be the 4:30 a.m. or the 5 a.m. person if you're sitting at home and you're doing this at night and you're scrolling through stupid, Instagram and stupid TV
Meaningless
and
things.
mindless
Yeah.
stuff. And that's what I used to do because I felt deep down that I deserved it. I was like, I just, put in 8-9 hours at work. I put in 5 hours into the kids and I deserve to like dumb it down and be stupid and watch stupid TV. But it was like one episode led to the next, to the next, to
Yeah.
the next.
Well,
and then
I've
you're
known
up late.
people that will watch stuff until they
Fall asleep.
get sleep or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no. How about actually turn it off and put your head down on the pillow and take your butt to bed like
Exactly.
your kids. Like, do you do that to your kids? Do you just leave the TV on and say, hey, fall
Exactly.
asleep whenever you fall asleep?
Yeah.
No, they'll be up till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
watching TV.
Yeah.
You need to do it like
Lights
you
out.
would lights out.
Yeah.
Night time.
Night time.
And I'll tell you, it's discipline. It
It's
takes
discipline.
so much.
I go to
and
bed
it
at
took
9 o'clock every
9
night.
o'clock. At 9 o'clock now, I
Lights
go to bed.
out.
I have not watched TV, you guys, and probably since 2019, I have not even put on a show. Like, my girlfriend's like, did you watch this on Netflix? I'm like, no. Did you watch this? I'm like, no. I completely got rid of TV. I don't even watch TV.
I don't very
So-
rarely.
And if I go on Insta, it's for me to post my stuff or to like support my friends, or sometimes they'll send me, I just posted this, can you support it? Of course. I stopped the scrolling. I cleaned up my life a lot. I mean, I went on Instagram, cleaned up all accounts that were just stupid and meaningless. And I'm like, why is it even popping on my feed? Number one.
Oh yeah.
I
Like
got rid of-
unfollow stuff.
I unfollowed
Yeah.
so many things. I stopped watching TV. I replaced TV with meditation. And honestly, I now meditate every single night before bedtime. Like 9 p.m., my headphones are on and I'm meditating. Like no matter what's going on.
So what
I
does that look
meditate.
like? I'm just curious because I never did some meditation. So you put some headphones on, you got some like noises going on, like white noise, or what is it?
No, it's basically, so I do Peloton meditation. I don't know if you know Peloton. I'm
I
sure
know
everybody
Peloton,
does.
yeah.
They have meditation classes. So they're guided meditation.
Okay.
And I put them on and just like last night, I was here in the hotel and I
While
had-
you're doing the bike?
No, at home, like when I'm sleeping, when I'm about
No,
to go to
they
bed.
have like a Peloton app.
So there's a Peloton
app.
app, and there's all sorts of classes on the Peloton. So there's running classes, there's cycling classes,
Okay.
and there's meditation.
Okay.
So part of their thing is meditation. So you put it on, and there's 10 minutes, there's 5 minutes, there's 30 minutes, there's sleep meditation, gratitude meditation.
But
there's-
what is it? What's playing?
So she's talking. There's
Okay.
like soft music, and she's talking, and she's guiding you. She's like, take a deep breath now, and let go of the day, and there's all sorts. There's morning ones.
There's kittens purring.
Yeah,
And,
no, it's actually, honestly, it's amazing.
Okay.
I think you should try meditation because that will take you to the next level.
Hey, I like stuff. Let me tell you something. I have when I go to bed, I say, "Hey Google, play the river noises," and
There you go.
and it goes.
Yeah.
It's just that white
That's-
noise.
I go
Yeah.
to bed at 9 a lot, but my going to bed at 9 a lot is me passing out at the foot of my kid's bed into my kid's bed because they
Yeah.
want me to put them night night, and so I just end
Yeah.
up falling asleep, and then I wake up at like 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
2 in the morning, and then I'm up for like another
Exactly.
hour or whatever because
Yeah.
I go downstairs and brush my teeth and whatever. Like
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it's
see, that's part of like
bad.
that's part of the routine that you have to change, and you have to make sure, like, if you're putting the kids to sleep, you have to make sure you, as soon as you're done, go into your room, brush your teeth, maybe meditate for like 10 to 15 minutes, and then you'll sleep through till 4, and then you'll be at 4 a.m. club.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
But I tell you what, I'll now tell everybody that I'm like, if you want to create a morning routine, you have to create a night routine. You cannot have a morning routine without having a night routine, because if your night routine is a mess and you're going to bed at 11, 12, and you're not doing what you need to be doing, and you're not focusing on, I have to get up the next day, then you're not going to have a morning routine. Like for me, I kiss the kids goodnight. I'm like, good night, guys, blah, blah, blah. I get my coffee machine. I don't know if you have your coffee machine ready for the next day. It's on at 4:30. It's ready to go. There you go.
Keurig.
Oh, so we discovered Nespresso. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, those are
I
good.
love Nespresso.
Life changing.
Yeah.
Life changing.
Life changing.
They are
I
pretty good.
have about 3 at home, but in the morning I like my good old coffee machine, just like the
okay.
drip. I have
yeah.
it programmed at 4:30. I do that. I make sure my coffee machine is on. I get ready. I take a hot shower. I get in bed. I do my meditation. I do journaling a little bit, and I look at my next day. What's my next day? My next week's gonna be. So I have like a routine, and then that's it. Once meditation is in, within 10 minutes, I'm out.
But you're right about if your night routine is kind of chaotic, right? Because
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
been times where, it happens where I don't get to bed at 9 o'clock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stuff's going on and whatever.
Exactly.
And yeah, like my morning routine gets jacked up,
Yep.
and
Then you're off all day.
and then I am off the next day, and like because I'll work out in the morning too. That's part of my morning
do
routine
too.
and all that.
Yeah.
So like, if my night routine the night before, let's say I get to bed at 10 or 11, right? I got a 50-50 chance I'm going to work out that next day.
Yeah.
That's like 50-50. I'm like rolling the dice on that next day of working out.
Yeah. And I mean, how
I'll just
good
be
does
honest.
working out? Exactly.
Oh.
I'm a workout fanatic. And that was part of my journey too, is I started working out. And I've always been like a runner and I've always worked out, but I never like lifted weights and really, I would do it here and there, like 3 days a week. Maybe like we would fight, my husband and I, like, you go to the gym today. No, you're with the kids. You're dropping off. And so I built a home gym. And I was like, you know
Me
what?
too.
Screw it. I'm just going to do a home gym. Yeah.
Me
it's
too.
the best thing.
Yeah.
There's no excuse.
No
There's no
excuse.
driving. There's nothing. And I literally religiously work out 7 days a week.
That's awesome.
If this guy's falling down, I get up and I give myself that time with coffee, and that time for meditation, and that time for working out. And so in order for me to work out and have the energy, I have to be in bed early, because when you're not, again, you're most likely going to miss your workout.
Right. You're going to, exactly. And then you're going to get in your own head and you're going to be like, you're going to feel guilty about why you missed it. Right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Oh,
And
100%.
You
So
let
what
yourself
about
down.
weekends?
What
about
gosh.
weekends?
So let me
Saturday
tell you.
Oh, I go to the gym on the weekend and I get it in, like the real gym.
At 4:30 though?
Oh, I'll be there for
Or
no,
okay.
no,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
no. On the weekend, I don't get up at 4:30.
So I have to say, I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but as you know, your body doesn't know it's a Saturday or
Right,
Sunday. So
right.
once you're like a person that wakes up at 4:30 or 5, I'm on Saturday and Sunday, I'm wide awake at 4:30 and
No,
5.
not me.
Because but I'll tell you one thing. If
Sleeping
if I go out the night before,
Okay.
then I do sleep in a little bit till
Okay.
6. I mean,
So-
sleeping is like 6 o'clock, but I still get in a workout no matter what.
exactly. So sleeping in for me is like
Yeah.
7 a.m.
If I'm lucky, I'll go
that's
to
like-
6:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but you train your mind, you train
train
everything.
your
Yeah. Your body, again, it's a Saturday, Friday,
Yeah.
Monday.
So
whatever.
tell us
doesn't-
about you got a book coming out.
I do.
All right, talk to us about that. And I mean, obviously, you're very
Yeah.
successful. You came from the war zone, and then now you're doing all kinds of things. You've got your dental practice,
Yeah.
and you're very successful. So talk to us about the book and what can readers expect from that.
Well, I started the book as a memoir, actually, because have gone through so much. And when I do share my story, when I started speaking on stages, everyone's like, well, why aren't you writing a book? Why aren't you sharing your story? And, originally the book started as a memoir. And then going through, when I started writing it, I went back and I said, I really want people to take lessons from this. I kind of want it to be of a homework and lessons and how to. And so the book is still a memoir, but it's also every chapter has a lesson and a homework in it. And so the book is for someone that, has that life of like the hamster wheel that's running around, that thinks that they're successful and they're doing everything and living their life, but really you're not deep down inside. It's really of an awakening of how to change your life and really live with purpose. How to transform yourself. And it's everything that I've gone through, the hard journey that I've gone through in the last 4 years, where literally I had to teach myself like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that. All that is in the book. And also, it's to learn how to be resilient. I mean, there's so many stories, and I haven't even touched probably 0.5% of the stories with you guys of what happened, as throughout my journey. But there's so many stories and how to from the stories. So let's say you're going through a divorce. You might not have gone through a war, because probably 1% of the population has gone through the war. But no matter what you're going through, let's say you're going through a divorce, let's say you're abused, let's say you had a rough childhood, let's say whatever it is that you're going through, it's how to learn to not just survive but thrive, how to adapt, how to be resilient, and how to turn everything that is negative into positive.
I love that.
And I became an expert at doing that. And even to this day, sometimes things happen, like whether it's at work or in the office or with the kids. And, my husband panics. He's like, oh my God. And I go, there's a solution for everything. And whatever it is that's happening now in my life, I change it into something positive. No matter what it is, I always find the positive in it. And I think it's all just really a mindset. And the book is for anyone that's looking to change their life. It's for anyone that's looking, like even successful people that want to, live life with purpose, know how to wake up and be happy, how to use every minute to their advantage, how to, create a life for their kids and for their, for their spouses and for whatever. And so this is kind of where the direction of the book is going. We're in the process now of hopefully the proposal is getting submitted soon, and hopefully it'll be out. We're probably hoping in July. So
that's awesome. So I got a question for you. I'm curious. Okay, me and Mark were actually talking about this before, on the drive up here, because like you're a dentist.
Yeah.
But like you're also like speaker, author, coach.
Yes.
Influencer.
Yep, podcaster.
Podcaster, like that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you got into
my gosh.
that world.
Yeah. So, obviously I started out as a dentist, and I love
From cavities to stages.
From cavities. So the whole thing started out, I was on Instagram posting my before and afters, and I really got into cosmetic dentistry because I've always loved fashion, and I've always loved anything aesthetic, and I always loved creating and transforming. And so I got into
grills?
I do. I all the time. That's my specialty. So I do smile makeovers and grills all day long and veneers.
Like Paul Wall grills?
Oh yeah.
We're talking about Paul Wall, the diamonds in the grill.
Oh no, we don't do those.
You don't do
those. I was thinking of getting into that because I was like, what else can I do?
Yeah, Paul Wall,
diamonds.
baby.
Those are hot, actually. I don't know if Orange County people want those, but
Houston. You need to go to Houston.
Maybe I need to
Houston, there you
change
go.
locations.
That's
yeah,
Paul Wall.
yeah.
Nolans.
Yeah.
Orange County just wants like the bright white teeth. Okay, that's kind of what they're into. But anyway, so I started posting, and little by little, I started posting also a little bit of what I do every day. The cooking, the fashion, and I love fashion. I've always been into fashion since I was 2. And so people started just kind of like asking, where did you get this and where did you get that? And so I started, becoming an influencer on Instagram for fashion and for cooking and for like being a mom. And little by little, I perfected dentistry. And it was probably about, I want to say a couple of years ago, I woke up one day and I told my husband, I'm like, I want to start a podcast today. And he was like, what?
Today.
Yeah, that's how I am. I'm
I
like,
love
today,
that.
I want this done. I want it done today. And he goes, are you crazy? He's like, you're running a practice, you're working, you're volunteering for the kids, you're like household, you have so much going on. Like we have this crazy social life, we're traveling all the time. And I go, no, I'm starting a podcast. And he was like, whatever. Okay. So I literally that day, I got my front office and I said, start looking for a studio for me. And we started calling around, and it was the funniest day because we got some crazy people to talk to. And literally by the end of the day, I had 6 guests lined up, a studio. And I went to bed that day, and I was like, what am I going to call it? What am I going to call it? And at 2 a.m., when I got up at 2 a.m., Smile Diaries came to my head.
Smile Diaries.
And I wanted the podcast to be about... because everyone kind of looks at you sometimes. They look at me and go, oh, she's pretty, she's cute, everything was handed to her. And she had it all, and I
You're
go,
like,
and I go,
excuse me?
no,
Yeah.
and I go, this was a journey. I mean, because people they haven't been with you for 15, 20 years, and they haven't gone through everything that you have gone through, and the sleepless nights, and the crying, and the, cardiology appointments, and the panic attacks. People
Sleep
don't
paralysis.
know that. The sleep paralysis. People look at you and go, oh, she's got the life. She's traveling. She's, buying, like... And it's not that. It was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of, a lot of sweat and blood and tears and everything. And so I wanted my podcast to be about people that are successful and their journeys and how they got there, because I want people to understand it's a journey and it's work. And, maybe some people are just handed things, but most people that are successful have come from nothing and have hard lives and hard journeys. But I wanted it to be somewhat related to dentistry, and I was like, I want a smile in there. And so I was like, you know what, we all walk around with smiles on our face, but do I know how was your day? You're smiling, right? You look at me and you go, hi, how are you? But do I know what kind of day you've had behind that smile? And so Smile Diaries was really about what's behind that smile.
Think about Robin Williams.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He was always smiling and laughing and making everybody else smile and laugh, but
exactly.
inside he was dying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't know what people got going on behind.
Exactly.
They wear a mask, you know?
And so I started Smile Diaries through that. I started podcasting, and it grew and grew. And I'm loving it because I get to meet the most interesting people. And then from there, I got invited to speak for the LA Kings and on different stages, and I started to speak, and I started sharing my journey. And people started coming up to me and they're like, have you written a book? And I go, it's been my dream to write this book for years and years. And I had already started and probably written about a quarter of it. And at that moment, I was like, you know what? I need to take this book like seriously. And that's when I sat down and, I really just went with it. And that's where the book started.
So first thing I like is that you take action, right? So you were like, I want a podcast like today. Do you know how many people have a dream or whatever like that, and they'll just drag that thing out? They overthink it, like the name. They
want it to be perfect.
Correct.
Right.
And it's like, man, you were like, okay, well, I will say this too. There is a little bit of a barrier to entry when it comes to podcasts. It's not a big barrier to entry, but like you called up some studios, right? So you didn't have to put together any lights, camera, action.
Yeah.
All you had to do was kind of like find the studio, book the studio,
I'll be
book
honest.
the guests.
I actually, at the beginning, I was like, I'm gonna do this all by myself.
I'm gonna put the camera.
And mind you, I still have the box. I went online and ordered like the best equipment. I'm doing this. I'm just gonna do it from like a place. I'll find a place. I rent like a place, and I'll do it myself. And I still have the box to this day. It's sitting in my garage. I ordered all the equipment, the
like
microphone,
the camera and stuff. Yep.
A camera and everything. And at what point, the only reason why I decided to have a team do it, because I have so much going on.
Yeah, right.
There is no way I can run a practice and have the kids and do everything and still like sit there and edit and do a podcast.
Your time is money. Your time is money.
Time is money.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? No, I need a team.
Yeah, you want to do the content. You don't want to be the producer, the engineer.
So.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people, but that's kind of the barrier to entry is all of that side of it, right? But, when it comes to a podcast, you don't have to necessarily do like the setup we have here. We got multiple cameras. It doesn't have to be this fancy.
Right.
I mean, you could do it. If you have a desktop computer,
right,
you can do a podcast. If you have a computer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most people actually nowadays, they do remote podcasts because it's easier on the guests too.
100%.
And so, again, if you have a desktop computer. But anyway, the point, and still people will drag their feet on it.
Oh, yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
And they get in their own head about, all this stuff. And I'm like, no, it's so easy.
It's easy. And for me, I'm a perfectionist. And everything has to like aesthetically look perfect in every way. And so I wanted like the studio and the 6,000 cameras and the team, and just because I wanted it to be perfect. So I just went that route. And
we started
in
a studio. We've been doing podcasting now. We just had our 7th anniversary of this podcast, and we started in a studio too. So, and I think if we wouldn't have started in a studio, like, I don't know if we ever would have got started, right?
Yeah.
Because again of that barrier to entry with all the cameras 100%. And all of that stuff. So
and there's learning. There's a learning curve too.
Correct.
I mean, when I told my husband I'm starting a podcast, I went on Spotify and I took there was this thing on Spotify that you listen to, and it's like 30 episodes, how to start a podcast. I mean, I sat there and I learned at night. Instead of my meditation, I had that and it took me like a week to like go through all 30 episodes because I was like taking notes, and so there's homework behind it. It wasn't like, oh, I just called up a studio and I said, hey, get me started. I had to learn. I mean, and I had to learn how to be in front of a microphone and a camera. I mean, sometimes it's intimidating.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember our first episode. I had notes like this, and I was like,
so dry.
Remember?
So dry.
Yeah,
like shaking,
it's practice,
like
right?
reading from a script. I'm like, blah blah blah. Like nowadays, honestly, I got questions here and notes that we didn't even talk because I just like to have a fluid conversation.
And that's how I am too.
This will get us started. And if I get stuck, because sometimes you have a guest. You ever had a guest that's dry?
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And those are so hard because you feel like, I say, like, it's like pulling teeth.
Yeah, it's like, see that?
That's hard.
Give me more. Give me more.
But that's all this is for. It's just like, it's a backup, actually.
It's a backup.
This is a backup.
And that's what I do too. I do that too. I just kind of like, with my guests, I'll just say, is there anything you're not comfortable talking about?
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure I'm being respectful, first of all. And I'll kind of give them a little bit of the topics, like, hey, can we talk about whatever it is? Like your journey, your marriage, your business, whatever. Great. And then I have bullet points. I don't even have questions when I'm really, interviewing people. And that's it. And sometimes the conversation takes you far away from what you had asked or what you wanted to ask anyways. But yeah, I mean, it's just more of a chat. And
do you have a title for your upcoming book?
Yes, it's called The Key Holder.
The Key Holder. Ooh, I like that.
The Key Holder.
Because of what you did. You were holding the key. All right, so you guys need to, do you have a estimated release date for that?
Yeah, it's about, July. I think we're thinking July. Yeah.
July,
End of July, yes.
All right, The Key Holder coming to you, okay? Coming to the Amazon bookstore near you. All right, y'all need to pick that up. And then Smile Diaries.
Smile Diaries, yep.
And what's the best place for the audience to connect with you?
I mean, I'm I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
It's The Real OC Dentist.
The
And
Real OC.
The Real OC Dentist. And I also have Smile Diaries podcast on Insta as well.
I like
for
the Real
people.
OG dentist.
You know, maybe I'll change it.
OG.
I like that too.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
But I'm in the OC. So
Yeah, well, but
maybe we could do like the OGC.
Oh.
Right?
Oh.
I
the
like
Real
that.
OC OG.
There you go.
What you know about me?
What you know about me? Hey, I'm willing to change it.
Hey. Well, guys, thank you
and,
so much
You
for
can go on
coming.
my website as well.
Okay.
It's drguittaharb.com.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Seriously, this is a
Same
fun
here.
episode. Tons
Yep.
of lessons.
Yes.
And you guys
Great
need to
insights.
check it out. She's got more. Go to the Diaries, the Smile Diaries
Smile
podcast.
Diaries podcast.
Check her out.
Yes.
And guys, that's the show. It's all about who you
ya
know.
I
know.
love it. Thank you guys. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
So
Thank
fun.
you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.